Why is theory important? Theory is important because whether you think of theory as being a mental model of how things are organized, or you think of it specifically about how a given decision will impact a certain outcome, or how two factors in your organization might relate to each other, it influences the way you're going to think about strategy, and those strategic perspectives that you hold on to are going to influence your decisions and eventually the outcome and health of your organization. So specifically, when we think of a theory of the firm or how a firm behaves, what we're really looking to answer at here are: why do firms exist and what's their purpose? Why do firms differ in their scale, scope, and the types of activities they do? Think if you're serving the same customers, if you're in the same product or service industry, why would two firms differ so drastically? And then also a theory of the firm can help us to understand, why do firms differ in their performance outcomes? If you're working to achieve some of the same goals, what is it about the decisions you're making that are having an impact for one firm that can be, in some cases, drastically different from the outcome for another firm? So why does the firm exist? What would be your answer? Are firms there simply as units of people coming together to try to reduce the cost of providing goods or services that people can't provide for themselves? Are firms there rather to serve society, and their main purpose should be to develop up to fit a need that society has beyond just themselves and their shareholders? Are firms simply there for shareholders? Is the whole purpose of having an organization to create profits and returns for the people who invested in that organization, and that it's really there to serve them? It might do so by serving society or serving others. Is it there simply to facilitate an exchange that two people may not be able to work together if they're on different continents, but if we have some organization that creates the service that allows that to happen, the organization now facilitates exchange? Or from more of a marketing theoretical perspective, is it really there to satisfy the customer? Is the purpose of coming together and providing some service or product really to build customer value? So different people answer this differently, and there's not one answer. There's not the answer. If you look at different theories of the firm, different theoretical perspectives, and a lot of these do grow out of economic theory. And so you have a neoclassical theory, which comes from the theory of perfect competition, has a lot of grounded elements grounded in that. It says, look, what is the firm? It's a combination of labor and capital that come together to produce an end product. And the goal is to combine this capital and labor in a way that maximizes total profits. And by doing so, it's efficient. So one of the way it competes, the way it creates a competitive advantage for itself and eventually maximizes its profits, is it will produce a certain level of output until the marginal cost of producing one more unit is equal to the marginal revenues for that unit. At that point, there's a decreasing return to your work and combination of labor and capital, so you would stop because you've reached your maximum profit goal. Now, some people will look at that and say, yeah, but you don't have all the assumption of information being complete and readily available. Sometimes that's not exactly true, and people might look at this more of a behavioral way, a behavioral theory of the firm. This is really what organizations do is they're coalitions of individuals and groups, and all these people might have their own goals. The employees might have a goal, leaders might have a goal, suppliers and providers to this group, central firm might have their own goals. And so really what these groups are trying to do is simply try to create satisfactory profits. And we compete by bargaining across these different groups, internal and external to the company. We bargain across these groups with all of their different interests that they have. And really what we're trying to do is create the satisfactory level of profits such that for what people put in, they're happy with what they get out. And we're more focused on how the individuals and the people behave about the organization. Then, again, a theory with a strong economic background, or a background in economic theory, is transaction cost economics. Looks at firms and says, hey, why do organizations ever get together? Why don't we just have lots of small individuals or people that do everything? Why do we try to combine resources and labor and work together to produce goods and services? Well, one reason, or one answer to that, is that there are different transactions from creating the raw materials, producing them through to a final product, delivering them to someone for purchase and then consumption. There are lots of transactions that go on. And so the purpose of the firm, the organization, is to combine the sets of transactions to the extent that it's minimizing the total production and transaction costs. So if I can create my product and sell it in retail better than just creating my product and selling it to someone else who owns their own retail outlet, well, then I'm going to have my own retail store. I'm going to integrate within my firm that retail outlet. Now I'm going to combine both the production capabilities as well as those distribution and sales capabilities of my retail space, and I'm going to do so because that minimizes my total production and transaction costs from beginning to end of what's going on, thereby maximizing my overall profitability. And so you'll see this when firms buying out competitors, buying out their suppliers. You do see this happening in reality. People working to minimize their overall transaction costs. There's another theory that is more of a management background, management strategy perspective, that says, really all a firm is a bundle of assets. If you get right down to it, you've got a bundle of intellectual assets, labor assets, physical assets, legal assets. And what organizations do is they try to combine the optimal amount of resources or assets in a way that maximizes their overall profitability. And it maximizes that because the resources that they have, the people, the copyrights, the legal assets, the financial assets, etc., this bundle of assets that they use to operate, they're valuable. So people are willing to pay to benefit from these assets in the forms of a service or product that's exchanged. They're rare, meaning that other people can't easily imitate them or copy them or create them themselves, which means that the value sustains itself because these resources I hold are rare and they're difficult to imitate. So when I have valuable, rare resources that are difficult to imitate and I combine them, I can now create products and services that are going to be more valuable in the marketplace. I'm going to be able to maximize my overall return on those resources, thereby reaching my goal of maximizing profits. Well, these are some of the predominant theories of what firms are. And again, they can be combined. But what if we look at this and ask the question this way? What comes first? Is it customer value or is it profits? When I'm running a business, you're running an organization, you're working in an organization, however it might be in your own life, when you think of your leadership role within the firm, what comes first? Is it building, sustaining, creating customer value, or is it answering for profitability? Well, if we think about a firm's purpose not just as maximizing profits, but the firm's purpose is developing, creating, and sustaining customer value, with the belief that if we are truly building value for our customers or for our consumers, if we're truly creating that value and providing it in a very real manner, profits will follow. If we can do that, profitability will occur, assuming also that we're doing that in a way that is efficient in its own self in terms of the costs that we are putting into that value creation. Now, a firm does not just operate in a bubble. Firms operate within an environment that has several factors that will also influence its performance and leaders' decisions. So when we're thinking about what a firm is and whether or not a firm truly is there to create customer value, and that's its key criteria, or it's there to reduce transaction cost, or it's there to be a bundle of resources, however we start to think of the firm, we have to realize these other factors. There are institutional factors, such as the way that different consumer reports and other groups are going to influence perceptions of what we offer. There are the press and media, and who often are not going to be controlled or influenced. We might have people within organizations whose job it is to help create positive images and messaging through the press, but we still have this social aspect around us, social media, etc., that we have to work with. And there's also state ordering, or the role of government. And so FDA, the EPA, we're going to have different rules and regulations across countries, across states, across any type of political boundary, potentially, that's going to influence what we do and how our performance goals are met. We also then have the structure of the industry itself. Depending on your background in business and in business theory, you may have heard the Porter's Five Forces, which talks about, if people can enter your market easily and there's a large threat of new entrants, you're probably going to earn less or lower profits. If there's high rivalry and there are people who are struggling to differentiate themselves and you have lots and lots of competitors in your market space, you're probably going to have your profits minimized there. If there are easy substitutes, if you're in a market where what you're selling can easily, the need it fulfills can easily be substituted by another product in some other market or some other industry, that's going to limit what you can do. Depending on where you are in your industry, if the people who buy from you have more power than you do, that might reduce your profitability. Similarly, if the people who supply to you have more power, that might influence your profitability and where you are within that chain of the industry. Then there are also market characteristics, these contextual factors, how social and cultural changes over time might influence people's attraction or movement away from what you have to offer. There are economic changes, political changes, technological changes, natural changes. So all of this is going on. And in the midst of all of this, you have your firm's strategy. And again, your firm's strategy is going to be directly related to the leader's theory of what your firm is, why it exists, and what it's there to do. So let's look at what a customer value focused theory of the firm might look like. If we truly believe that firms are here to maximize and to build and sustain customer value, there's certain things the firm should be organized and ready to do. First, really these aren't in order. The first one I'll talk about here is foresight, knowledge about the market. When you look at the market and how these social and cultural changes might happen, how political changes might happen, when you look at how laws and legal institutions might impact the market in the future, can you effectively think about the future of your market? Can you keep that knowledge in a way that is valuable, which means that it's knowledge not everyone can extract from the given information, that you are developing this foresight to understand where the market's going so that the value you're creating today, you can adapt to still be able to create that value or greater value in the future for your customers. Are you looking at your firm, and is your firm oriented around customer value? So if you have a market-oriented culture and you're focused on the culture of your firm, then is it from your accounting and your finance and your engineering and all the way across your firm, not just in your marketing group or in your sales group? Does everyone have a customer-oriented mindset? Is everyone thinking about what the customer's needs are, what the customer experience is? Do you have processes that are focused on creating value for, removing blocks away from customer experiences? Are you then, in other words, is the interfunctional coordination there such that procedures that go from IT and accounting and sales and marketing are all of these functional operations, whether they are in a silo or not. In a small company, there might be one person that does all of that. But in however your firm's organized are the processes that are needed to manage and implement and oversee the customer experience. Are they integrated to maximize the value created by those services that are offered? Also, when you think of a market-oriented firm, they're not just customer-focused, not just focused on those interfunctional coordinated processes, but they're also looking at the competitors. So, and thinking, how are we doing relative to our competitors? Recognizing that customers have choices. And that customer value theory of the firm is going to recognize that we have got to provide more value than our competitors or by those items or options that might be substitutes to what we have to offer. That's our insight. So we have this foresight where we're always looking out, thinking about how sustainable the value that we're creating is. We have this insight looking internally across an entire organization. Again, if your organization is 3 people, it's much different than if your organization is 3,000 people. But we have insight into what our culture is and the processes that we share to serve customers. And then we're also looking at our environment. We're noticing how fragmented the different markets of customers are, the level of competition that's there, the changes that are coming in our market space, again, politically, economically, socioculturally, etc. We're looking at the current environment and what's happening there, and we're using a cross-site to constantly try to match what we're doing internally with what's happening in the environment externally. And we're always trying to pair these so that our firm is operating optimally to create value in its given environment, and that value is being constantly looked at as being sustainable in the long run, and that's our foresight. So we have these different types of sites as we manage the organization, and all of them are focused on the purpose of creating value for our customers, those that we serve. So there's an article you can read that's titled "What is Your Theory of the Firm?" and it will go through some examples of how Disney and others have their performance has ebbed and flowed based on how well they may have kept to their theory of the firm. And one of the quotes from that article, the author points out that leaders must develop a theoretical model of the landscape, and then make an educated guess about where to find valuable considerations of capabilities and activities and resources. This is where theory is important. If your theory and your cognitive model of your firm is only looking at one element of why a firm exists, transaction cost, a behavioral focus, just a resource-based focus that tends to be more internal, and you're not combining with it customer value, you're not looking at the processes across that go to serve your customers, you don't have the foresight going on. If all these elements are not important, then they're not going to help you make the best educated guesses about how to sustain value for your customers in the long run. So this is where theory becomes important. Now, with that theory in mind, when you start to create and decide what your organization is going to do, there tends to be this decision or this focus on organizations to really decide how it is they create value. How is it that you create customer value then? What do you do better than anyone else in your industry that allows you to outperform them and allows you to sustain yourself as a company? And you can generally think about 3 value disciplines an organization might follow. First, again, not in any chronological order, but just the first one I'll speak about here is operational excellence, where if that's your value discipline, the way you're going to create value, then what you're looking at is leading the industry in price and convenience. You are going to have be most capable at reducing costs and being most efficient in your delivery systems to where when customers think of their options, they're going to see a greater value in you because your operational excellence, that discipline that you have, allows you to bring the greatest convenience and the lowest price of a comparable product or service to your customers. Walmart might be an example of this. Customer intimacy is another discipline by how you might create value. In a customer intimacy discipline, what you're looking at here is how can I create the longest lasting customer loyalty? Your objective is really maximizing customer lifetime value. You will spend what looks on the surface to be an exorbitant amount of money and a high level of investment to satisfy customers today. That may just by an outsider looking in think you're eating into your margins here. You are not going to be able to be profitable doing that, but your goal is making sure that customers are loyal for you, not at this purchase, but over the lifetime of purchases they're going to make within your industry, and that they're going to be loyal to your company. And what you're trying to maximize is the lifetime value of that customer. Some of the capabilities that become important there are market sensing, again, that foresight, understanding what customers are looking for, what you have to provide to make that, to be able to create loyalty and to maximize their lifetime value. Because again, you're not looking just at the value of the purchase today, but over the lifetime of that customer. So constantly sensing the market, trying to understand where it's going. Customer linking, your ability to connect with customers, which is sometimes different just from convenience. It's not just being in as many places as possible, providing things as quickly as possible, but really linking with them and building relationships through them, be it through different communication outlets, be it through different services, some of which may not have a direct profit impact, but their impact is on the relationship with the customer, and hopefully that relationship is what is leading them to future profit behaviors that can impact the customer's lifetime value. An example of this might be Disney, who's looking at creating when people are looking for some type of family experience, be it at the movies, be it at theme parks and vacations, be it on their media choices and where they get streaming video and content, etc. from, or however it might be within the industries they're looking at. Can they create a loyalty to them, to their brands, and to their organizations? And it would not be uncommon to have an experience. Now, this is not always. You could easily listen to this and think of one important case where an employee for a Disney company behaved out of this context, but it would not be surprising or uncommon for a Disney employee to give away something for free or to do something that might seem out of the ordinary at a park or at a different Disney-related experience that might have a negative influence on the overall profitability of that interaction with the customer, but is really trying to build the overall loyalty and satisfaction with the company so that the lifetime value of that customer is maximized. Beyond customer intimacy and really having that experience, you might also look at companies who focus on product leadership. And what their objective is to really produce a continuous stream of state-of-the-art products and services. So this isn't just having a brand that's well liked and you have minor changes to your products over time. This is really looking at product leadership. When you think of Apple, of truly having the capabilities to be truly creative over time and having a rapid speed to market. So not just can you change the way music is experienced by creating the iTunes platform and having different ways to deliver that through different hardware, be it phones or through iPods, etc. Not only are you creative in the way you do that and rethinking and redefining home computing, redefining how people pay for things, redefining how people view and think of media and content on their televisions and computers at home. Not only are you creative, but you can do it faster than most of your competitors, if not faster than all your competitors. And you're able to use creativity in the markets you choose to serve and always be the fastest to market with the newest improvement, and sometimes with innovations that are breaking the mold and changing the way even your competitors now have to compete with you. It may mean that that creativity and that speed to market is also changing the time you have to capture the profitability from the last thing that you created and got to the market quickly. So you might often find yourself competing against what you do. But these are three disciplines that you can see of how value is created and how it's created for customers through different outlets. So organizations will outperform competitors when they lead their industry in one of these value disciplines while also meeting standards in the other two. So you have to meet the standards in your industry, but if you can exceed in one of these disciplines, another way that you may be able to outperform competitors in your industry. So, what is your theory of the firm? What is your reason for why firms exist? What are your answers for why firms organize and look differently in terms of scale and scope? Why are their performances different? A leader's belief about how their organization operates can influence how they lead. It can influence where they invest and how their organization performs, at least theoretically.